I used to think working overnight at a gas station was one of the easiest jobs you could have. That was before what happened outside Red Hollow, Missouri 3 winters ago. I was 24 then, trying to save money after dropping out of community college for the second time. The station sat off an isolated stretch of Route 61, about 15 miles from the nearest town. During the day, it got enough business to stay alive. Truckers, commuters, tourists heading south. But after midnight, it became a different place entirely. The road emptied, the world went silent, and the darkness around the station felt heavier somehow, like it was pressing in from the tree line. Most nights I was alone from midnight until sunrise. My manager, Dale, liked to remind me that the overnight shift was easy money. Stock shelves, clean counters, ring up the occasional traveler, stay awake. That was it. Honestly, he was mostly right. Until that Thursday in January. It was bitterly cold that night. The kind of cold that makes every breath feel sharp in your chest. Around 2:30 a.m., business had completely dried up. I had finished restocking the drink coolers and was leaning against the counter, scrolling through my phone just to stay awake. After staring at a screen too long, I decided to step outside for some air. The lot was empty. No cars, no headlights in either direction. Just the soft buzz of the overhead canopy lights and the distant hum of trucks somewhere down the highway. A thin layer of fog hung low over the pavement, not thick enough to block visibility, just enough to blur the edges of everything. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds, rubbing my hands together. Then, something moved. It was subtle, a shift in the shadows near Pump 4. I turned fully and saw him, a man standing behind the pump, completely still. I have no idea how I hadn't noticed him before. He was tall and lean, wearing a faded red hoodie with the hood pulled low over his face. His hands were buried deep in the front pocket. He wasn't pumping gas. There wasn't even a car nearby. He was just standing there, watching me. I felt that immediate, instinctive jolt of unease, the kind where your brain doesn't know why something is wrong yet, but your body does. I gave him a quick nod and headed back inside. Once behind the counter, I kept an eye on him through the front windows. He stayed there another minute. Then he started walking toward the entrance, slowly. His movements were strange, not nervous exactly, more like he was rehearsing something in his head. The bell above the door chimed as he stepped in. He came straight to the counter. Up close, he maybe looked early 30s, pale, gaunt, eyes darting around too much. He didn't speak right away, just stared at me. Then, in this rushed, awkward voice, he claimed his car had broken down just past the highway entrance, claimed he needed a flashlight and maybe some help checking under the hood. Something about it felt rehearsed, like he'd practiced saying it. I glanced toward the lot. Still, no car. That alone made me suspicious. I offered to call roadside assistance. His response came too fast. No, almost panicked. Then he forced a smile. It's probably something simple. The way he said it made my skin crawl. Still, I tried to stay calm. People passing through at that hour were often weird, exhausted, high, drunk, desperate. I asked where exactly his car was. He pointed toward the security monitor mounted behind me. Out there. I turned instinctively, and sure enough, one of the exterior cameras showed a dark sedan parked near the edge of the lot by the highway entrance. For half a second, I felt stupid. Maybe the guy really did need help. Then I remembered something. I'd been outside less than a minute earlier. There had been no car there. I was certain of it. I looked closer at the grainy monitor. The sedan's headlights were off, engine off, just sitting there. Then I saw movement, near the rear bumper. A shape, low to the ground. Someone crouched behind the car. My stomach dropped. I kept my face neutral and turned back to the man. He was watching me very carefully, waiting for my reaction. That's when I knew. This wasn't random, and he wasn't alone. I forced a polite smile. "Sure, let me grab my flashlight from the back office." He relaxed slightly, even smiled. "Appreciate it." I walked calmly toward the stockroom door. The second I stepped behind the wall, I slapped the emergency panic button mounted beneath the shelving unit. The station alarm exploded instantly. A deafening mechanical screech filled the store. The reaction I expected was panic, shock, maybe anger. Instead, the sudden shift in the man was what terrified me most. When I looked back through the doorway, he was smiling. Not startled, not confused, just smiling like this was mildly entertaining, like he'd expected resistance, like this was simply one version of how the night might play out. Then he turned and bolted for the exit. I rushed to the monitor. Outside, another figure emerged from behind the sedan. Both men sprinted, but not toward the car. They ran straight into the woods bordering the east side of the property. And they moved fast, too fast for people stumbling through a failed robbery. The sedan remained exactly where it was, empty, still, engine dead. That's when a third thought hit me. If neither of them had gotten into the car, then who had driven it there? That question kept looping through my mind as I stood frozen in front of the security monitor. If the two men had run into the woods, then who was in the car? Or worse, who was still in it? The station alarm kept shrieking through the building, but somehow that only made everything feel more surreal. The lot outside looked perfectly still. The dark sedan sat motionless near the edge of the property. No headlights, no movement, nothing. And yet I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me from inside. I backed away from the windows and grabbed the cordless phone beneath the counter. My fingers were trembling so badly I had to dial 911 twice. The dispatcher answered. I explained as fast as I could, trying not to sound completely panicked. Attempted break-in, multiple suspects, one possible vehicle still on site. The operator told me officers were already being dispatched because the panic alarm had automatically notified the county sheriff's office. That should have made me feel better. It didn't, because while I was still on the phone, I noticed movement on the monitor. The driver's side door of the sedan slowly creaked open. No interior light came on. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a figure stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing dark clothes. He stood beside the open door without moving, his face impossible to make out through the grainy feed. And then, he looked directly toward the store, toward me. Even through that terrible camera quality, I could somehow tell he knew exactly where I was standing. The dispatcher was still talking, asking for descriptions, but I barely heard her. The man reached into the car, pulled something out, and started walking toward the station, slowly. My chest tightened so hard it hurt. I locked the register drawer, ducked behind the counter, and grabbed the only thing nearby that could pass as a weapon, a steel tire iron we kept under the register for emergencies. The footsteps didn't come immediately. At first, there was nothing, just the alarm. Then, 3 heavy knocks against the front glass, deliberate, measured. I stayed crouched, didn't move, didn't breathe. Another knock, then another. And then, silence. Long enough to make me wonder if he'd left. I risked a glance at the monitor. The front entrance camera showed nothing, empty pavement, no sign of him. That somehow felt worse, because if he wasn't at the front, then where was he? A sharp metallic bang exploded from the side of the building, then another. He was hitting the employee entrance, testing it. I heard scraping, the sound of metal dragging against metal. He was trying to pry it open. That was the moment pure survival instinct kicked in.
I ran to the stockroom, slammed the inner door shut, and wedged a pallet jack beneath the handle. The room had no visibility, just darkness and the smell of cardboard. I stood there, clutching the tire iron, every muscle locked, listening. The scraping got louder, then stopped. For maybe 20 seconds, there was absolute silence. And then came footsteps inside the store. Slow, unhurried. He'd gotten in. I don't know how. To this day, I still don't know whether the side door lock failed or if he had some kind of tool. But he was inside, and he was walking around. The footsteps moved across the tile, paused, then moved again, like he was searching. At one point, they stopped directly outside the stockroom door. I remember staring at that handle, waiting for it to turn, waiting for it to rattle. Instead, I heard something far more disturbing. A laugh. Low, soft, almost amused. Then the footsteps moved away. Seconds later, headlights flashed through the gaps beneath the stockroom door. Blue and red. Police. The footsteps immediately broke into a sprint. I heard the front entrance slam open, then shouting outside, a chase, more shouting, and then everything went quiet. An officer finally opened the stockroom door. I must have looked insane standing there with that tire iron raised over my head. They secured the building and took my statement. What they found outside made the whole thing even stranger. The two men who'd fled into the woods were gone, vanished. The broad-shouldered man who entered the station was gone. No footprints despite the damp ground, no discarded tools, nothing. Just the abandoned sedan. When they ran the plates, it came back stolen from Springfield 6 days earlier. The interior had been wiped clean. No fingerprints, no DNA, nothing. Except one thing. In the trunk, officers found heavy-duty zip ties, duct tape, a blanket, and a prepaid burner phone. The detective assigned to the case didn't sugarcoat it. He told me outright that they believed I'd interrupted an abduction attempt. The broken-down car story was likely meant to lure me outside where the other two were waiting. If I'd walked out there with a flashlight, I probably wouldn't have made it back inside. That thought haunted me for months. I quit the next morning, didn't even finish my notice. Dale actually tried convincing me to stay, said security would be increased, that they'd install better cameras. I laughed in his face. No amount of cameras was worth that risk. A week later, the sheriff called with one final update. The burner phone from the trunk had received a single text roughly 20 minutes before the incident. It contained only 2 words. He's alone. They never traced who sent it. No arrests were ever made. No suspects identified. Nothing. That was 3 years ago. I work days now at a hardware store in town. Safe, bright, crowded. And every now and then when I'm locking up at dusk and the parking lot starts to empty, I think about that night, about that smile on the first man's face when the alarm went off. How calm he was, like he'd done this before. Like somewhere at some other lonely station in the middle of nowhere, it had worked.
My name is Jason, and I used to work the night shift at a 24-hour Walmart on the edge of Larkwood, Ohio. Used to. I don't work there anymore. And I don't shop late at night either. Not after what happened. The store itself wasn't unusual. Big, fluorescent, always slightly too cold. The kind of place where time stops making sense after 1 a.m. During the day, it was packed. Families, teenagers, retirees wandering the aisles. But after midnight, it turned into something else entirely. Mostly silence. Occasional carts rolling through empty aisles, and the constant hum of lights that made your head feel a little heavier the longer you stayed under them. I worked electronics. It was the quietest section in the whole store. Phones, headphones, cheap TVs locked behind glass. Most nights, I'd just stand behind the counter scrolling my phone or restocking displays that didn't really need restocking. That night started like any other. Slow, predictable, almost boring. Around 1:10 a.m., I noticed him for the first time. A man standing near the end of the aisle across from electronics. At first, I assumed he was just another late-night customer killing time. But something about him felt off immediately. He wasn't browsing, wasn't touching anything, just standing still, watching. Every time I looked up, he was there, not moving, just there. Then gone, then back again a few minutes later in a different aisle. It didn't make sense. Walmart is big, sure, but not that big. And his movements weren't natural. It was like he was intentionally placing himself where I would notice him. I tried ignoring it. People get weird at night all the time. But this felt different because he never actually approached a product, never checked a shelf, never looked at anything except me. I finally grabbed my walkie-talkie and tried to call for a manager. No response. Static. I checked the battery. It should have been fine. That's when I felt a tap on my arm. I almost jumped out of my skin. A woman was standing next to me, smiling like we knew each other, like she belonged there. "There you are," she said, way too casually. I stared at her. I had never seen her before in my life. She had long, dark hair tied back neatly, a jacket that looked slightly too clean for a Walmart at 1 a.m., and a calm expression that didn't match the situation at all. Before I could respond, she leaned in slightly, lowered her voice. "That man over there," she said. "He's been recording you." My stomach dropped. I turned instinctively. The man was now fully visible at the end of the aisle, not pretending anymore, holding something in his hand. A phone, pointed directly at me, recording. A cold wave went through my body. The woman grabbed my arm gently, not painfully, just firm enough to guide me. "Come with me," she said. "Don't make it obvious." I hesitated maybe half a second. That's all it took. Because the man was still staring, still filming, and something about the way he stood made my instincts scream at me to move. So I did. I followed her. We walked fast through the aisles. She kept talking the entire time, too casually, like she was trying to cover the silence. "Oh my God, remember that trip we took?" she said loudly. I didn't know what she was talking about, but I played along instinctively because I didn't want him to know I was reacting. We turned a corner, then another, and when I finally risked a glance behind me, the man wasn't there anymore. That should have been a relief, but it wasn't, because now I didn't know where he went. The woman didn't stop walking. In fact, she sped up. "We should go out the side exit," she said. That's when I slowed down just slightly. Side exit wasn't where employees were supposed to go alone at night, especially not with someone I didn't know. "Hey," I said carefully. "I think I'm good. I should get my manager." She didn't respond right away, just kept walking, still holding my arm, a little tighter now. "I said I'm good," I repeated, stopping completely this time. She turned toward me, smiling again, but it didn't look the same anymore. It looked thinner, forced. "Come on," she said softly. "He's still in here somewhere." And that's when I realized something. We weren't walking towards the front of the store. We were heading deeper into the building, towards the employee-only corridor, towards the back exits, where there were no customers and fewer cameras. I pulled my arm back slightly. "I'm not going that way." For a split second, her expression changed. Not anger, not panic, just something colder, like calculation. Then she smiled again and tightened her grip. That grip changed everything. It wasn't aggressive yet, but it wasn't casual anymore either. It felt like a decision had been made. My brain caught up before my body did. This wasn't a helpful stranger situation. This was something else. I jerked my arm back hard enough to break her hold and stepped away immediately. "What the hell is going on?" I said, louder than I meant to. A few seconds of silence followed. Too clean, too controlled. Then she smiled again. Same expression from before, but now it looked practiced, like a switch had been flipped back into place. "You're overthinking it," she said softly. "We're just trying to help you." That word stuck in my head. We. Before I could ask what she meant, I heard footsteps behind me. Slow. Measured. I turned. The man was back. standing at the end of the aisle again. Closer this time. Phone still in his hand, but not filming anymore. Just holding it. Watching. The woman didn't even look at him. She just kept her eyes on me. "Listen," she said gently. "You don't want to be here when he gets closer." My instincts were screaming at me now. I backed away. "Stay away from me." I reached for my walkie again out of habit. Still nothing. Dead. That's when I made a choice. I turned and ran, straight toward the front of the store. I didn't look back, but I could hear her voice behind me. Not shouting, just calling out calmly, like I was making a mistake. "Jason, wait!" Hearing my name made my stomach drop so hard I nearly tripped. I had never told her my name. I ran faster. I passed checkout lanes, aisles, end caps, everything blurring together under those buzzing lights. Then I saw movement ahead. Another employee. Mark from grocery. I waved him down. "Call security," I shouted. He looked confused, but nodded and grabbed his phone. When I finally reached the front area, I turned around. The aisles behind me were empty. No woman, no man, nothing. Just still shelves and long, fluorescent silence. Security eventually arrived and started checking cameras. At first, they found the man. He was visible in multiple aisles, exactly where I said he'd been. Standing still, watching. But when they tried to track the woman, they hit a problem. Every time she appeared on camera, her face was turned away just enough that it never fully captured her. Not once. They rewound footage again and again. She was there, leading me through the store, talking, touching my arm, but always just slightly out of full view. Security eventually pulled in the store manager and reviewed the entire sequence. That's when things got worse. Because they noticed something I hadn't. The man wasn't just following me. He was coordinating movement with her. Every time she turned a corner, he adjusted position. Every time she slowed me down, he disappeared from view. Like they were working together. The manager called police immediately. By the time officers arrived, both of them were gone. No exit footage showed them leaving. No purchase records. No ID scans. Nothing. Just a half-hour gap where they existed inside the store, and then didn't. The only clear image police got was the man. His face showed up briefly on one camera near electronics, but when they ran it through databases, there was nothing. No match. No name. No record. The woman was worse. No clear image at all. Not even a partial face. Just a presence, moving through blind spots, like she knew exactly where cameras couldn't see. Police initially treated it like a failed abduction attempt. Maybe someone testing security. Maybe something worse. But nothing ever came of it. No suspects. No follow-up. No leads. The case went cold within weeks. I quit immediately after that night. Didn't even wait for payroll, just left my vest in the break room and walked out. What still messes with me most isn't the man, or even the woman. It's the fact that she knew my name before I ever said a word to her. And when I think about it now, years later, there's one detail I can't shake. If they really were working together, then the man wasn't watching me. He was watching her, and she was the one deciding how close I got to the exit.